From Evoke Media, I'm Sabrina Mirage Naeem. With me is Cassia Binkowski, and this is Breaking Glass, a series of conversations with women around the world who are shattering glass ceilings and challenging social norms. They are audacious, gutsy, and their stories are echoed across borders and generations in a rallying cry that is changing the narrative for women everywhere. All right, ladies and gentlemen, little known fact. Cassie and I are the mothers of 5 young children between us, all under the ages of 5. And as such, we were especially excited to be joined by Heidi Iravani and Emily Clifford, co-founders of Piccolina. Piccolina is a lifestyle brand dedicated to empowering today's young children to become tomorrow's leaders and problem solvers. Heidi and Emily joined us to talk about the gender boxes we place around our children, the stereotypes and career paths that constrain them, and what we can do as parents to inspire creativity and equity in the next generation.
This one was a really fun one, Sabrina. As the parent of a little boy who loves trucks and all things pink, and a daughter who is obsessed with dresses, I loved every minute of this conversation. Emily and Heidi share their own professional journeys from male-dominated industries to their experience over the past 18 months as young mothers and badass entrepreneurs. We're talking parenthood, gender stereotypes, and how to raise a generation of young feminists. It's something we obviously care very deeply about, and we think you do too. Take a listen.
Heidi and Emily, thank you both so much for joining us from different parts of New York today, but East Coast nonetheless. Pleasure to have you.
Thanks for having us. Great to be here.
So I'd like to start before we get into the Piccolina story and hearing about what you guys are doing right now. You both have had different careers kind of coming into this and pretty accomplished in your careers. So tell us where you were before you became mothers, Heidi.
Before I became a mother. Well, the last job that I had before I became a mother, I was working in investment banking. I actually entered finance while I was pregnant. So I began my career on Wall Street as a corporate attorney, and I had been working at a big New York law firm for 3 years. When I got recruited to go and join an investment banking firm on the finance side. And I believe, like the day after I interviewed, my first interview, I found out that I was pregnant with my first child.
Awesome timing.
Yes, perfect.
So that was, it was really exciting timing. And I think I had just read Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In on the subway. On the way to work, and I was sort of like, I'm going to go with this. And so I went for it. I jumped from law to finance and did investment banking for 2 years. And while I was there, I also got pregnant with my second child. During that time, for my husband's career, we ended up relocating for a few years from New York to Washington, D.C. And so at that time, I ended up switching into tech because while I had been in law and in banking, I had developed a real interest in business and a fascination with, how businesses evolve at different stages, and really wanted to work on the inside of a company. So,
I have to pause you for a second because we need to acknowledge the reality of the situation, which is that there are kids laughing in the background, and that is life. So, so that's going to happen, and that's okay, and we embrace it. But please continue.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's like I don't even notice the sound of children in the background anymore. It's white noise to me. So I was in tech, and that's where I was when I decided to start Piccolina, and also got pregnant with my third child.
God bless you. But I do want to just clarify that before investment banking, you were a lawyer.
I was.
Okay, so you've hopped around quite a bit, but all of these things were vastly different from where you are today, and we'll get into that. But Emily, we want to hear about your background as well.
Yeah, so my career path was a bit more static. I was in the same place for almost my entire career, so almost 13 years. And I started there right out of college, actually. Prior to college is when I started at Donna Karan. And so I got into fashion at a pretty early age and stayed in fashion, specifically buying and merchandising for my entire career. And it was there that I had my first child. And really having my first child was what made me kind of rethink my career path. But just to give a little bit more background on what I did in fashion. So I worked for Donna Karan and I started, initially in the planning portion of the business. And then I worked my way into buying and merchandising. And so at the time that I left, I was managing, a pretty large team for all of our retail stores and our e-commerce site. So I had a really strong understanding of, fashion and retail. So, the skills that I'm using today are very similar to what I was doing for the past 13 years, but just in a very different way.
Were these the careers you kind of always saw yourself in? Is this what you wanted to be when you grew up? I guess I'm curious kind of what gender stereotypes existed in your own homes and what kind of exposure you had and ambition you had professionally.
So no, it's very funny that I ended up in fashion because, growing up, I was a real tomboy. I actually thought I was going to be a baseball player for my entire life. And so I really stumbled into fashion, not because of fashion, but because it was a connection that I had when I was young and in college. And when I was there, I really connected with the people there. And so it was really, I gained my, an interesting fact is that my mentor was the same person that I interned for, and she became my boss. And I was with her for 13 years. And so she really served as this role model for me. And what was so important about that was that it wasn't, for me, there wasn't really this sense of fashion and girly stuff. It was more that I saw this very strong female business person, and I wanted to be that. I loved seeing, success in that form. I had never seen, I'm from a small, pretty small town in Buffalo, and, my parents are social workers and teachers, and, coming to the city and seeing these high profile executives and then seeing them be badasses, it was very inspiring to me.
And Heidi, you were in a very kind of male dominated industry that runs on testosterone. I mean, what was that like for you, given you started your family right in that realm?
Yeah, I think that, to be honest, I hadn't really been super aware of gender stereotypes professionally until I became a member of those industries and or really towards the later part of law school. I had a bit of a rough childhood growing up, and really was swimming upstream so much that everything was a challenge, and my gender just was a minor detail.
I'm curious if you'd be willing to talk at all about some of those hardships that you faced as a child.
So I grew up in a rural town in North Carolina, sort of an old abandoned textile mill town. My mother, her parents had moved there from in the Depression era. And my father was from Iran. And so I think the combination of this deep Southern Baptist background and a Muslim Iranian background, there were definitely some elements of male worship, I think, on both sides of my family. But ultimately, my mother was a single mother. I had 3 younger siblings, and she struggled to raise us. And I really knew that to get out of this town, my education was going to be critical for me. So I really leaned into that.